Have you ever noticed how, in the midst of so many advances and technologies, people seem more and more lost, anxious and directionless? Everyone is looking for quick answers, whether in a new productivity method, an online course, or even in magic formulas for success. But the truth, surprising to many, is that the most effective solutions to modern challenges are held in ancient teachings, which stand the test of time, the lessons of biblical wisdom. That's right, the texts that many consider outdated contain practical and powerful answers to the questions that plague our everyday lives. Think about it. How to face the anxiety of such a fast-paced world. How to find peace in the midst of so much pressure and demands. The Bible, with its teachings on faith and life, offers clear and straightforward ways to address these dilemmas. Wisdom and discernment. When life presents complex challenges, it is easy to fall into the trap of relying only on one's own understanding. However, biblical wisdom invites us to something greater, to recognize that there is a higher plane that we do not always understand. In Proverbs 3:5-6, we are reminded to trust in the Lord with all our hearts and not rely solely on our own understanding. Think about everyday situations, such as when we need to make important decisions, a job change, a new relationship, or even raising your children. At times like these, seeking divine guidance can turn uncertainties into clear paths. Imagine someone facing a seemingly hopeless situation, such as a financial crisis. Often, we try to figure it all out on our own, thinking we know what's best. But if we instead ask God for wisdom, as suggested at James 1:5, we might find an unexpected solution. And that solution could come from an unexpected conversation, a book that falls into our hands, or an insight during a prayer. Wisdom, after all, can manifest itself in surprising and practical ways. At the end of the day, discernment is about knowing the difference between what feels right and what is truly right. It is about listening, amidst the noise of the world, to the calm voice of truth that guides our steps safely. And as we embrace this path, we discover that biblical wisdom is not just distant theory. It is daily, applicable practice, a powerful tool for facing modern challenges and living with faith and purpose. Peace and tranquility in times of anxiety. In times of uncertainty, the human heart is easily filled with anxiety. It's as if every worry is a storm about to engulf us. Biblical wisdom, however, gives us an unexpected way out, peace that surpasses all understanding. In Philippians 4:6-7, we are told to take all our anxieties to God in prayer and supplication. Imagine facing a problem at work or a family difficulty. Rather than being consumed with worry, the practice of stopping and praying can bring an inexplicable calm, a tranquility that transcends logic. Anxiety is also fueled by worry about the future, by fear of the unknown. However, Matthew 6:34 challenges us to live in the present, leaving tomorrow in its own hands. In practical terms, this means focusing on what we can do today rather than losing sleep over what might happen tomorrow. Make a list of daily tasks, meditate, take a deep breath. These are practices that help us to be present, aligned with the teaching that each day is enough for its own evil. By finding this peace in the midst of chaos, we become a living example of faith to others. The eternal lessons of faith and life show that, even in times of anxiety, there is a tranquility available to those who choose to trust fully. And by following this path, we begin to understand how every small decision can bring us closer to a more serene and purposeful life. Forgiveness and reconciliation. Forgiving can seem like a difficult, almost impossible task, especially when the pain is deep. However, biblical wisdom teaches us that forgiveness is a bridge to inner peace and true reconciliation. Matthew 6:14-15 makes it clear. Just as we desire God's forgiveness, we must also release forgiveness to others. Think about How many times we hold a grudge against an old hurt, carrying that weight in our hearts. When we choose to forgive, we are not only freeing the other, but mainly ourselves from an emotional prison that prevents us from moving forward. And forgiveness is not just about great offenses. It also resides in the small irritations of everyday life. As Colossians 3:13 teaches us, we are to bear with one another, forgiving one another. This can manifest itself in practical ways, such as choosing to overlook an unfortunate comment from a colleague or forgiving a friend for forgetting an important appointment. Small attitudes of grace and understanding are powerful steps towards a lighter and fuller life. Recognizing the power of forgiveness is an act of faith and life, a choice that teaches us that we are all flawed, but also we are all worthy of a new chance. By embracing this truth, we are actually paving the way for stronger, more authentic relationships built on the foundation of compassion and empathy. Humility and servitude. In a world where the ego often dictates the rules, biblical wisdom invites us to walk a different path, the path of humility. Philippians 2:3-4 teaches us to consider others better than ourselves, to put the good of others before our own interest. Think about how this applies to everyday life, in traffic when giving way to a hurried car, at work when helping a colleague who is in difficulty, or at home by listening patiently instead of imposing one's own opinion. These are gestures that seem small but reflect a greatness of spirit. True humility is not about thinking less about yourself, but thinking less about yourself. And this is reflected in the servanthood, as exemplified by Jesus in Mark 10:45, who came not to be served, but to serve. This mentality can be applied in various situations in life, offering help to an elderly neighbor, participating in volunteer actions in your community, or even in your work environment, taking on tasks that no one else wants to do. These are attitudes that bring a sense of purpose and connection. By practicing humility and servitude, we become agents of transformation in our society. We open doors to deeper and more authentic relationships, fostering an environment where everyone feels valued and respected. And it is this same humility that prepares us for future challenges, teaching us that true power lies in serving and loving our neighbor with all our heart. Hope and faith in difficult times. In times of adversity, when everything seems to fall apart, hope becomes an anchor for the soul. Biblical wisdom teaches us that all things work together for good to those who love God, as Romans 8:28 reminds us. Imagine someone facing an unexpected loss, whether it's a job, a loved one, or a dream. At these times, it is faith that drives us to move forward, believing that even the darkest moments have a greater purpose that we have not yet been able to see. Hope is also manifested in the trust that God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in distress, as Psalm 46:1 states. That means finding strength in the midst of chaos, even when the world around us feels like a raging sea. It can be practiced through small attitudes, such as taking a few minutes a day to meditate on inspiring texts, talk to people who lift us up, or simply be grateful for what we have, even in times of scarcity. By nurturing this hope, we become beacons for others, lighting the way in times of darkness. It is not just about resisting difficulties, but about finding in each challenge an opportunity to grow and strengthen our faith. And so, we move forward, prepared to face the challenges that are yet to come with a confident heart full of hope. Justice and righteousness. Justice is a powerful word, which goes far beyond what is seen in the courts. In biblical wisdom, it is a call to act with integrity in all aspects of life. Micah 6:8 reminds us that God expects us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with Him. Think of an everyday situation, such as witnessing an injustice at work or school. What do? Often, the simple act of taking a stand, of defending someone who is being wronged, is already a way of practicing justice that pleases God. Righteousness, in turn, is more than doing what is right when everyone is looking. It is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Isaiah 1:17 challenges us to learn to do good and to protect those who are most vulnerable, such as the orphan and the widow. Applying this teaching can be as simple as supporting social causes, getting involved in volunteering, or even donating time and resources to organizations that fight for the rights of the oppressed. These are actions that demonstrate a real commitment to justice and righteousness. When we choose to live by these principles, we transform our community, our city, our country. We have become agents of change, living examples that it is indeed possible to be fair in a world full of inequalities, and so we set the stage for practicing other core values that connect us more deeply to the essence of life. Love and compassion for neighbor love is more than a feeling. It is a daily decision to give oneself to others. Jesus left us with a new and powerful command in John 13:34-35, to love one another as he has loved us. This love goes beyond words, demanding practical actions. Imagine someone who chooses to forgive an old friend despite past hurts, or who takes the time to listen to those in need, even when they're busy. These small acts of compassion are reflections of true love, which manifests itself in practice. Biblical love is not selfish. He is patient, kind, and celebrates the truth, as described in 1 Corinthians 13:4-7. Applying this love in everyday life can be as simple as offering a smile to a stranger, helping a colleague at work without expecting anything in return, or even performing an unexpected gesture of kindness, such as buying someone a coffee. Love is powerful because it has the potential to transform both the giver and the receiver, creating a positive cycle that profoundly impacts the society around us. When we live by this commandment to love our neighbor, we leave a legacy that goes beyond time. The people around us come to recognize something different in us, something that is stronger than the circumstances. And it is in this continuous exercise of love and compassion that we prepare ourselves to face other challenges in life, always with an open heart and ready for the next step. Wealth and contentment. In a world obsessed with the accumulation of material possessions, biblical wisdom teaches us the opposite path, that of finding contentment in what we already have. In 1 Timothy 6:6-10, we learn that true wealth is not in the things we possess, but in godliness with contentment. Think of someone who, despite having little, lives happily, valuing the small joys of life, such as a simple family dinner or a walk outside. This is the kind of wealth that money can't buy, and that generates lasting satisfaction. Contentment, therefore, is learning to be grateful for what we have without letting ourselves be consumed by the desire to always have more. Proverbs 30:8-9 warns us against the extremes of poverty and wealth, teaching us to seek a balance where we can live with the necessities without becoming slaves to money. Applying this in practice can mean making a conscious budget, donating what we no longer use, or even reflecting on our true needs before each purchase, small choices that make a big difference. By seeking contentment, we learn to live more lightly, without the constant weight of comparison and dissatisfaction. We come to appreciate what really matters and make room to be more generous, more compassionate, and more present in the moment. And, with this new look, we prepare ourselves for life's next challenge with a calmer and more confident heart. Self-control and moderation. Self-control is an often overlooked virtue, but it is essential for living a balanced and happy life. Biblical wisdom, especially in Galatians 5:22-23, describes self-control as a fruit of the Spirit, something to be cultivated with dedication and intention. Imagine someone who, instead of reacting angrily in a moment of conflict, takes a deep breath, and responds calmly. This is the power of self-control in action, transforming tense situations into opportunities for growth and understanding. Moderation is the middle way, the ability not to get carried away by excesses, whether in food, in the consumption of goods, or even in the words we utter. Proverbs 25:28 compares a lack of self-control to a city without walls, vulnerable to attack. Applying this teaching can mean adjusting daily habits, such as limiting time on social media, opting for a healthier diet, or simply taking a break before talking in times of stress. Small adjustments that over time make a big difference. By developing self-control and moderation, we become masters of ourselves, able to face temptations and challenges with serenity and wisdom. And it is this inner balance that prepares us for any adversity, keeping us firm and focused on our greater purpose. A continuous journey of growth that leads us to a full and meaningful life, always ready for the next challenge. So, now that you know the transformative power of biblical wisdom, what are you going to do with it all? Will you continue to follow the same paths or allow yourself to try something new? That really makes sense? Think about the areas of your life that need to change. Isn't it time to apply these teachings and see the results for yourself? How about starting with something simple, perhaps an act of forgiveness, a gesture of humility, or simply learning to trust God more in difficult times? If these ancient lessons still have such an impact today, imagine what they can do for you now. Don't leave for later. What can transform your life today? Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue exploring with us these and other lessons that have the power to change your story. After all, we are all looking for answers, and perhaps the answers you are looking for are closer than you think.